All right, we're ready to go. Big Shastaf tonight. We're learning about the topic of Yesh Breira versus Ein Breira. This does require for your brain to be functioning, as does most of Eruvin, I might add. I don't know that I've ever struggled so much in even Krisus and Me'ila. I found that easier than this. So by and large, tonight is not so difficult. It requires paying attention primarily in the beginning, and then the rest should flow pretty smoothly. But before we get to the meaty part, we have literally just one line after the two dots. We're starting now on the bottom of Lamed Vav Amud Beis at the two dots, which is approximately 10, 11 lines from the bottom. And in the Mishnah we had learned yesterday, remember we spoke about the Mishnah that if the Nachrim come from the east, I'm going to use my Eruv to the west. And if the Nachrim come from the west, I'm going to use my Eruv to the east, and Lakan this, I can do whatever I want. So that is basically the principle of Breira, which is that there's an unknown in the future. I don't know what's going to happen, when the Nachrim will come, if the Nachrim will come, where then, I don't know. But I'm relying on an Eruv that I put there before Bein Hashmashos, based on realities that have yet to come to reality. So do we rely on that? That's the machlokas of Yesh Breira or Ein Breira. We're going to get to that today. But the last line of the Mishnah that we learned, you can just take a peek right there. It says, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Im Haya Echad Mehen Rabo Holech Eitzel Rabo. So there, that's right where the two dots pick up on. What was he trying to teach us? That if the Rebbe is coming, you have to use that Eruv. Obviously, he was trying to contrast with the Tanna Kama. What did the Tanna Kama hold that he was trying to push against? So it says the Gemara tells us openly. The two dots, Rabbi Huda Omer Im Haya Echad Mehen Rabo. So there, V'Rabbanan, what did they think? What? Like if your Rebbe comes, you're allowed to go the other way? Says the Gemara, sometimes you have to have good friends too. Zimnin Denichali B'Chavret Feme Rabbe. They did not want to be limited by the fact that if the Rebbe Mufak showed up, which is almost strange a little bit, but they didn't want to be limited by that. Maybe they were going to go to their friend's house for Shalashudis, and they already heard shir from their Rebbe that day. So the Tanna Kama had more latitude in how to use these Eruvin than Rabbi Yehuda, who limited it and said that your Eruv is only good if the Rebbe comes to the east. Your Eruv is only good in that way, and the Tanna Kama was more lenient and more expansive. Let's jump in. So here we're starting out today with the Shita of Rav. Amar Rav, Leisa lemas nisen midatani ayo. What?
I don't understand the difference.
According to Rabbi Yehuda, that's what you're talking about?
Yeah.
According to Rabbi Yehuda, he says that if your Rebbe comes, you're not allowed to go the other direction.
Right.
The other Eruv is puzzle, can't use it. Right. But what does that imply about the Tanna Kama? That implies about the Tanna Kama that you don't have to follow your Rebbe. So that's what the Gemara says, V'Rabbanan, the Tanna Kama, what do you hold? So there he says, no, maybe he doesn't want to go to his Rebbe. Maybe he wants to go to his friend's house. In other words, the Tanna Kama held that you could still use either Eruv, even if your Rebbe came to the east. Mashiach Rabbi Yehuda says, if Rebbe comes to the east, the Eruv on the west doesn't work. That's the nafkamina between the Tanna Kama and the Rabbanan. Yeah? Okay. So then says the Gemara, our Mishnah, which really epitomizes the idea of Breira. Again, Breira is that there's something that hasn't happened yet. My actions of right now, of where I put my Eruv, I don't know how I'm going to utilize it because the realities on the ground, as the Mishnah highlighted, where will the Nachrim come? Where will the Rebbe come from? I don't know that information yet. So does that unknown information of when someone will come to either side of the city, can I make an Eruv based on that total unknown of if and where? I have no idea what's going to happen. So our Mishnah implies very strongly, almost explicitly, of course you can do that. That's exactly what we discussed yesterday. But that's only our Mishnah. Because Ayo, Rashi highlights this as the name of a Chacham, Ayo was not of that opinion. And Rav felt that our Mishnah needs to bow its head in the face of Ayo's Brisa. Now this will raise a general question, of course, because Brisas are not as powerful as Mishnayos. So let's get into this a little bit. What did Ayo teach? Ditani. Here's what Ditani Ayo. Ayo taught the following Brisa. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Ein Adam Masne al Shnei Dvarim Ke'echad. You are not allowed to do that. You cannot make this conditional thing on two different scenarios. Ella, what can you do? Im b'chacham lemizrach eruvo lemizrach. What you're allowed to do is if you put your Eruv on the Mizrach, and it happens to be that the Rav shows up there, great, you lucked out. Im b'chacham lemarav eruvo lemarav. And if the Rebbe shows up on the west and you have an Eruv there, good. What can you not do? Aval lekan ulekan lo. You can't put both. You just got to luck out. You put it on the east, you're hoping that the Rebbe from the east is going to show up there. Otherwise, it doesn't work. So says the Gemara, I don't understand your own distinction, Ayo. Why is it that within your...
So you agree with the first case of the Mishnah?
Correct, exactly. That's what the Gemara is going to pick up on right now. He agrees with the first case of the Mishnah. So he says, I don't understand. Maishna lekanu lekan dilo de ein brera. I understand. If you're going to tell me why, in the case of lekanu lekan, I put an eruv on both sides. You put an eruv lekanu lekan. So I understand. If you don't hold a brera, if you say that because I don't know where the Rebbe is going to show up, therefore the eruv died, fine. I understand why the lekanu lekan works. But asks the Gemara, just like David was saying, but lemizrach ulemarav nami ein brera. I still don't. Let's say I only put one on the east. I still don't know if the Rebbe is going to show up. Still ain't brera. So what the Gemara is touching on here is, do we need a double unknown in order to get to the category of ein brera, or is one unknown enough for ein brera? A lot of lumdas. Like how do we view this lack of clarity?
Do you need 100% success possibility, or is 50% enough?
There is no 100% success.
Well, you have both sides.
No, do you need 50-50 or do you need 25? Because if you only have one suffix, I made it on the east, and I don't know if he's coming. 50-50.
Fundamentally, do we say yesh brera or ein brera?
But what the Gemara is doing,
it should work everywhere. If we say ein brera, it shouldn't work in either case. That's the Gemara's question.
right? Exactly. Is that do we want to say that we need a double doubt in order to apply ein brera? Do I need an eruv lakan or lakan? I have two eruvim, one on the east, one on the west. Is that the case where we say yesh brera versus ein brera? Or no, even if I only put one eruv, but I'm not sure if the Rebbe's coming, would I say yesh brera, ein brera there too? That's exactly what you're saying, another way to phrase it. So the Gemara gives an ukimta type of answer, and the Gemara says as follows. The Gemara says, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, no, ukvar ba chacham. The chacham was already there. You didn't know. But there was no, be'etzim, there was no real suffix. We didn't know, but the Rav was there. So you walked to the east side of the community, and someone's like, the Rav came before Shkia last night. Baruch Hashem, I don't have to worry about my Eruvin at all. He's right here. He was here before Shabbos. I was Kona Shvisa with him in the Eruv. Who Eruv b'makom echad. It's perfect. So that's what the Gemara says. It seems to imply that the machlokes of ein brera or yesh brera only applies where you have the lakan or lakan case. Okay, makes sense so far. So that's the shita of Ayo. That's the shita of Rav quoting Ayo. Rav felt that Ayo's brisa trumps our brisa, and we hold ein brera. That's what it seems to be from the start of the Gemara. It says the Gemara, wait a minute. Adirabba, we should have said the other way. We should have said leisa lede Ayo mimos nisin. We should have rejected Ayo because of our Mishnah versus brisa. Says the Gemara, lo sal kadaitach. You could not have done that. Why? Why could we not have rejected Ayo from our Mishnah? Why does our Mishnah have to be the one to lose out? 2 lines from the bottom, says the Gemara, because we have more Mari Mekomos to contend with. We had Ayo, who quoted Rabbi Huda, and we have another Mari Makom that indicates that we don't hold a Breira in the name of Rabbi Huda, and that's this Mishnah. It's actually a Brisa. On the very bottom of this page, it says it's not in the Mari Mekomos. Change this to Detanya. The Brisa writes, Halokech yain mi bein hakusim. I'm going to buy wine from Goyim. Bells should be ringing. Stam yenam. Rashi, bottom of the page. Dibra Maseches Hakusim, historical note. Kodem shegazru al yenam kedem mefarish b'shchitas chulin. It wasn't always usher to use the yenam, the stam yenam of a goy, and not only a goy, but someone who is a mumar l'davar echad in halacha. I'm makbid to wear shatnez. I keep the other 612. You're a kusi, and that is stam yenam. What?
Questionable what kusi means.
That's a big machlokas we've shown them throughout Shas, and the applications apply as well.
I think Rashi seems to be saying it's not just a regular goy; it's these people of this nation.
Yeah, you have to look at. We have to look in Chulin.
I think that's the that he's referencing.
So he says, "Kodem she gazru al yenam." This seems to be talking about a goy. Kedem afarish b'shchitas chulin. Why? Al yenam, their wines.
Because what's the issue?
Stam kusim lo mafresh truma. Right. The rest of Rashi does say that. Ve'in lazeh kelim lahafresh l'sochan truma u'maiser. So Rashi's saying it could be. First of all, we happen to know that stam yenim is about both. Just Dina, we know if you eat at someone's house who's not Shomer Shabbos and they pop open the wine that's yat mavushal, that's not mavushal, you're done. You can't drink the wine, obviously. But you're right. I think this Rashi is being very specific that it's a yid. Could be. But we have to see the Gemara in Chulin too to see what the phraseology is there. But certainly this Rashi is saying what you're saying because stam yenim lo mafresh truma. What? Yeah, but you already learned it once. So says the Gemara, if you buy your wine from a kusi, so then what happens in the following scenario? Omer, and again, as you pointed out in Rashi, that the meiser hadn't been taken yet. Omer, I'm the fruma yid, I buy it, and here's what I say. I don't do any actions, I just use words. Omer, shnei lugen shani asid lahafresh. In the future, I'm going to take off the truma. Harei hein truma. Rashi, top of the page, top Rashi, min hameya. We assume that there are 100 units of wine, a nice clean mathematical case. You've taken 2 as your truma. That's considered the sheer beinanis of truma, 40, 50, or 60 different sheer of truma. And we assume that in this case you took out 2. And again, you're only talking, so harei hein truma. So now you've taken down your units from 100 to 98, but only in theory because you haven't separated anything. This is all verbal. And then the next step is Meiser Rishon, Asara Meiser Rishon. You take off another 10. It's not really 10. It's 10% of 98, which is 9.8. The Gemara is rounding. The Balei Tosos point this out. So that's your Meiser Rishon. So we took off 2. Then we took off another 9.8. We removed 11.8, and we're left with 88.2. And then the Gemara says Tisha. It's not really Tisha. It's really 8.82, right? So whatever the math is. So then Tisha Meiser Sheni. So what's the din in this case? If you verbally state that I want to remove my Meiser, but I haven't done it yet, and I don't know which molecules of wine I'm going to pull later, it all sloshes around all the time. It's a free moving state of liquid. What does the Gemara say? Umeichel v'shosem miyad divrei Reb Meir. The din is that you're allowed to drink that. What seems to be implied by Reb Meir? We assume that you're allowed to rely on brera, because we don't know what you're going to separate from the wine. At the top, the bottom, the middle, this molecule, that one, we have no idea. There's billions.
The last of the barrel.
Maybe the last of the barrel. We don't know. What you might separate first. You might separate last. Whatever, because you're allowed to drink it already. So maybe you only have to save the 2 plus the 9.8 plus the 8.82. That's all very possible. So it says Reb Meir, no problem. Reb Meir seems to assume brera. What about the contrasting opinions? Says the Gemara, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Shimon. These words will be found to be very important in our Gemara today. These 3 shitas, they all hold osrin, namely ein brera. They do not rely on brera. So now we have another brisa in the name of Rabbi Yehuda that indicates that we don't hold a brera. So that's why, says the Gemara, we couldn't take our Mishnah and trump Ayo. Ayo had to win because we had more Mar Mekomos on his side. Why didn't they pick Rabbi Meir? Rabbi Meir holds to be Yesh Brera. So the answer is because we were looking at Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda is in our Mishnah. Rabbi Yehuda is in both Brisas. So we're looking through his lens, and through the Rabbi Yehuda lens, it seems to be that he holds Ein Brera throughout. Now that's all in the world of Rav. However, as mentioned, Ula does not agree with this. 4th line, Lamed Zayin Malach. Ula says, I don't agree with you, Rav. Well, they didn't live at the same time, but in concept, he said that Ula Amar, Leisa la'ayo mimas nisan. I'm going to reject Ayo, and I'm going to reject him from our Mishnah. So asks the Gemara the obvious question, we just proved Rav. How did we prove that Rav was right, that we accept Ayo and not the Mishnah? Says the Gemara, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Shimon Osrin. We just showed our 3rd Mare Makom, where Rabbi Yehuda held Ein Brera. So how can you say against Rav? How can you say that we now hold of our Mishnah against Ayo? How can you say Yesh Brera, like our Mishnah, against Ayo, who holds Ein Brera? So says the Gemara, a great answer. You put the comma in the wrong place. Says the Gemara, Ula zuze tani. In this brisa, when we quoted 4 Tanaim, it's in pairs. You quoted them Rav Meir in one, and Rav Yehuda, Rav Yossi, Rav Shimon in the other. So it's 1 against 3. That's how you quoted it. But Ula says, no, zuze tani. They should have been taught in pairs. Divrei Rav Meir, Rav Yehuda, comma. Rav Yehuda was a mekel, and he said we rely on brera there. Masha'enkein, Rav Yossi, Rav Shimon Osrin. So he just uproots the whole thing. He upslugs the whole world of Rav. You wanted to say that Ayo is stronger than, not anymore, because your Mari Makomos just fell apart. You thought the comma was before Rav Yehuda, and it wasn't. You made it wrong. So that's what Ula says, is zuze tani. You needed to learn them in pairs, and you broke it down in the wrong way. We've seen all the funny memes about putting commas in the wrong place. This should be a frum example of that. Okay, so now we're done with these 2 worlds. We have the whole Rav world, which seems to paskin of Ein Brera, like Rabbi Yehuda, Ayo over our Mishnah. And then we have Ula that holds that our Mishnah trumps. Our Mishnah is Yesh Brera, right? You put them everywhere, wherever you need to go, you can go. Yesh Brera and Ayo is wrong, and he proves because of the comma that you've lost your Mara Makomos that would otherwise support you.
Put one in east and you put one in west, one doesn't knock out the other?
According to Ula. Yeah, according to our Mishnah. Ula says our Mishnah beats out Ayo. So our Mishnah is Yesh Brera. Then our Mishnah, as we learned it on the top of Lamed Vav and Beis stands.
Knock it out. If just one works and one is nothing.
What does that mean?
But they're dangling.
For Yesh
They're
Brera.
dangling until the Brera comes. No, you can't have 2 Eruvin.
You can't have 2.
Right.
It ruins it.
Right, so you
You're
have.
correct.
You're
Our
right,
Mishnah
both
says,
ready to go.
no, our Mishnah says Yesh Brera. Our Mishnah is Yesh Brera. You can have multiple Eruvin all over the place, no problem.
And
But
use them?
And use that.
And use that.
That's Ula's world where the Mishnah trumps Ayo. But in Rav's world where Ayo trumps the Mishnah,
So what's the
Ein
whole-
Brera.
What's the whole question of if my Rebbe comes and my Rebbe doesn't come?
Yeah.
Only if there's one Eruv. According to the Shita that holds of Ein Brera, if you only put up one Eruv on the east and he happens to come on the east, you can rely on that Eruv even if he shows up after Shkia.
That's not the case in the Mishnah. The Mishnah says.
That's not our Mishnah. 'Cause that-
One west.
Correct.
Just if he comes
You have
here,
two.
right.
Right, correct.
I have two physically
Correct.
planted out there, right?
And Ula felt that our
But
Mishnah
I'll
was
only
right.
use one depending on where he comes. Right?
Yes, but that is Brera.
That is Brera.
That is
exactly.
Brera,
And I
exactly.
don't have to decide today which of the one of the two.
Either can function based on the unknown of who or if someone would show up.
And let's say the Rav comes Friday night and I go east to see him, to Tish.
Are you an Ula Jew? This is the Mishnah
Yeah,
over
Mishnah.
Ayo?
And then tomorrow, out of the west, comes somebody
No
else.
problem.
I can go. It doesn't knock it. That's what I'm saying. It doesn't knock it. It
Doesn't-
doesn't
So
possibly.
it doesn't knock it out.
You're asking a question within the world of Yesh Brera.
Right.
Yeah.
But Pashut that works because it's Yesh Brera. It makes it even better.
No, but he would.
Let's say you use the East
Actually,
Eruv on
he's saying
Friday
that
night.
If I choose my break, you have a choice. And once you choose one, the other
Why
choice
don't-
is
why
gone.
No,
don't-
that makes it better. That makes it better.
If
Because
I-
even the sheet of Ein Brera would say that if you have one Eruv left and the Rav comes, you can go. You're making it better, not worse. If you have two Eruvin and you use quote unquote your one Friday night, so first of all, Yesh Brera would say no matter what you can do it. Even Ein Brera would say you'd be okay. in
Why
that
do I need
case.
Brera if I'm permitted to make Eruvin in all directions I want?
But that is Brera. That is Brera because the realities of when they showed up was not now. The reality is the unknown of tomorrow. I don't know if the Rebbe is coming.
And I put one in the east and he comes from the east.
Perfect.
Why?
Because
Doesn't work
because
either.
that's not Brera.
It is Brera.
That's what we learned on the bottom of the page. That case is not Brera. Brera requires two scenarios. So even within Ayo, he said that if you only put up one Eruv and the Rav shows up by that Eruv, you're good to go. That's perfect. That's not Brera. That's just Mutter. That doesn't enter into the world of Brera. Brera requires two. You have an Eruv east and west. Then we get into the Shaila of Yesh Brera or Ein Brera. So our Mishnah is a pure Yesh Brera. Everything, all 10 Eruv, no problem. But Ayo says, I'm sorry, you're not allowed to do that. That's not allowed. It's not allowed. You can, Mikanu Lakan is problematic. But if you have just one Eruv, then that doesn't enter into the world of Brera versus, what?
East and west, which one can you use?
Both.
If you're a Yesh Brera Jew, it doesn't make a difference. That's our Mishnah. That's what our Mishnah said. You put a Mishnah, you put one here, put one there.
Luxury that we have.
Well, we don't know how we have to see how we
According to
paskin.
the latest Ula answer, yes.
Exactly. Ula is a Mishnah Jew, and Rav is a Brisa Jew. So Ula followed our Mishnah.
When?
What?
So the
No, that's the
Mishnah
discussion.
The Machlokes
Mishnah
Amoraim.
versus Bryce.
What?
Yeah.
Mishnah versus
Yeah,
Bryce.
except that the Bryces had multiple Bryces that proved the Mishnah wrong until Ula came along.
So
and
Ula
said,
came along and upslugged the
Your
whole
comma's
thing.
the wrong
Correct.
spot, or Yehuda isn't on the Bryce's side, or Yehuda's on the Mishnah side of Yesh Brera.
Correct. So in short, when there's only one Eruv that's put up, this whole conversation is a non-starter
Right.
because we don't care if there's one Eruv that's not Brera. If there's only-
two,
Well,
But
it's
if you have
assuming
You
guess
have
the
two,
right
and you're a Rav Jew, so that's a problem because Rav says Lakan is usher. That's you're not allowed to do that. But if you only have one Eruv, everyone says it's mutter. And if you're a Yesh Brera Jew, we don't.
cannot hedge your bets.
Mhm. So if I have two Eruvin out,
right,
let's say I'm an Ein Brera Jew. Let's say I'm like Ayo. I'm like Rav /
Right.
Ayo. And I put up two Eruvin. Says the Gemara, you cannot use either of those Eruvin if the Rav shows up. Ein Brera. You're not allowed to rely on what's going to happen in the future. You're not allowed to do that.
like you said, had you bet.
You're not allowed to hedge your bets, right?
Right.
Exactly. All right, we got to finish at some point before Mara, but this is Gavaldik. I think we're actually getting a good tfisa on Rav versus Ula in the Amoraim. Again, and their predecessors, of course, would be Ayo behind Rav and our Mishnah behind Ula. Very, very good. Gavaldik. So then says the Gemara, we have to ask some nuanced questions. In the Mishnah, in the Brisa that we started on the bottom of this page about Halokech Yain Mibena Kusim, according to all versions, Ula and the initial version of the Mishnah, even whether or not we change the comma, Rabbi Yossi was of the opinion of Ein Brera. So asks the Gemara halfway down the Zayin Madal, the Savar Rabbi Yossi Ein Brera? You put him into the category of saying that it's usher to drink that wine because we don't know if you're going to take out the meiser first or if you're going to drink first? You said Ein Brera by Rabbi Yossi? Really? Question number one. Says the Gemara as follows. Vatana. Rabbi Yossi Omer Shtei Nashim Shalachu Es Kinehen Be'eruv. Two women give birth. So after their period of tumah, they're obligated to bring two tziporim, two birds. They have to bring a chatas and an ola. Fine. Now you have two women. They shared a hospital room, and they go to the bird store together, and they're buying their birds, 2 birds per person, one for Ola, one for Chatas, one for Ola, one for Chatas. Oh, Shanasnu Dmei Kinehen LaKohen, or they just gave the equivalent in money to the Kohen. So then the din is Eze Sheyirtze Kohen Yakriv Ola, Ula Eze Sheyirtze Yakriv Chatas. The Kohen gets to choose. But isn't that Breira? And this Mishnah is listed in the name of Rabbi Yossi. Stira. He holds Ein Breira in the previous Mishnah, but here he seems to hold Breira. That's our Stira.
What do you mean, which one?
Because the Kohen,
we
don't know.
He bought 4 birds.
These 2 women bought 4 birds.
Right.
Which
He gave
one?
him money. He gave him $50 and he bought 4 birds.
Yeah, but I don't know which birds are mine, and not only that, even if I did, which one is the Chatas and which one's the Ola?
Yeah, that's a completely different case.
What's a different case?
Because it didn't have it.
Did they buy 4?
I didn't have, that's Breira.
No, but they go to a bird store, there's a bird in a cage, right?
Yeah.
Is it like, ain't Breira, I can't buy a bird because I don't know if the bird.
It's not Ein Breira. The Ein Breira is that the Kohen is choosing at a later point in my purchase, as the women purchase, which one is my Korban Chata, says the woman, which one's my Korban Ola. I have no idea the Kohen's going to choose. So it says the Gemara, that's a case of Breira. Well, the Gemara is going to reject that actually. And maybe what you're saying is a piece of the answer. We'll see. It's a very complex answer with a huge machlokes Rishonim behind it. So it says the Gemara, Rabbi Yossi is head-to-head against himself. Kasha the Rabbi Yossi ad Rabbi Yossi. So answers the Gemara, 3rd line from the bottom, a very, very difficult answer. Amar Rabba Hasam Kishehisnu. There they made a condition. What does that even mean? Huge machlokes. Rashi, Tosfos, Ritva, the whole Gansvelt is having a very difficult answer with this. The Balabatish version of this answer is that a Tnai and Breira are not the same thing.
Sounds the same.
They sound very much the same, and that's why we need Rishonim. So that's one world of discussion. Tosfos doesn't want to go that far. If you look just 5 lines from the bottom of the page, 6 lines from the bottom of the page, in Tosfos Ziramasal Kishehisnu, Tosfos says, Venir Ali in the middle of the page, Venir Ri Lefaresh, Kishehisnu Anashim B'Shas Lekicha. They did say when they bought the birds, they said, Zeh Yeshali v'Zeh Yeshalach. Even when they gave if they gave money instead, be'eruv, and they gave all the money mixed up, this dollar is for that bird. The birds were never confused at all to the women. Just the money was mixed up. The women knew what each dollar was for, but the Kohen didn't know. So it says the Gemara, it's not Breira anymore. Right? Because the women had the clarity. There was no lack of knowledge by them. The Kohen had a lack of ideas. So it says the Gemara, of course that's mutter. That's not Breira at all. The Kohen doesn't know, but the women knew. That doesn't even engage the world of Breira. Says the Gemara, no, Kamashman Kid Rav Chizda. Rav Chizda, we need his shita to help us understand what's going on here. What does he say? The Amar Rav Chizda, Ein Hakinim Misparshos. When a woman, or when anyone buys a bird, but what we're talking about women here who are Leda, Ziva, whatever the case is, anyone who's Mechusar Kaparo has to bring Zav, Yoletis, and Mitzorah. When they have to bring a bird, they're only Misparshos, we only define them, their status, what the bird is, Ella. Ibe Lakichas Be'alim, at the moment when it's purchased, Ibe Asiyas Kohen, or at the moment when the Kohen has it. So Rashi highlights here, I'm just going to save us a little time. Rashi says, what if you bought it, and then you go home, and you're like, oh no, I forgot to say what's what. Then you go home and you say, this one's an old one, it's too late. You already bought it. So said the Chiddush of the Chizit is that the Kohen can still do the Korban, and it's not considered Breira, even if the women didn't know. That's a big Chiddush. So that's why we needed Rav Chizda here. So that was question number 1 against Rav Yossi. Question number 2 against Rav Yossi. V'akati, Savar Rav Yossi, ain't Breira. Still, that Mishnah at the top, the Brisa at the top of Lamed Zayin Amud Aleph in regards to the wine, where you verbally wanted to separate Meiser, there he said, ain't Breira. V'atanya. We have another case. Am ha'aretz she'amar lechaver. There's an Am ha'aretz, he's not makbid on Trumas and Meisers, and he says to his friend who is a chaver, who is, you're going to Jewel anyways. You're going shopping. You're going to buy red peppers. Please buy me some. Kachli aguda achas shel yarak. You're going to go buy me a bundle of vegetables. O gluska achas. You're going to go buy me food from the store. So now I go to Jewel and I buy 5 red peppers for me and 5 red peppers for you. So it says the Gemara, according to the sheet of Rabbi Yossi, Eino tzarech la'aser divi Rabbi Yossi. What does Rabbi Yossi say? Rabbi Yossi says, I am not chayiv in meiser on this food. Why not? Because it's not mine anymore. Because of Breira. That's what's implied. Is that at the moment when I purchased it, I don't know which of the 10 red peppers, 5 are going to go to you. It might be 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9. But it also might be 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. I don't know which red peppers are going to go to you. So V'haraya, this is Breira. The fact that I don't have to give Meiser, says Rabbi Yossi, shows that it's not mine. How can you say it's not mine? I don't know which ones I'm giving him. Must be he holds a Breira. So that's the question that's being asked from here. Rabbi Yossi says, huh? Oh yeah, Rabbi Yossi says this is a case, seemingly this is a case where he holds a Breira. V'chachamim omrim tzarich la'aser. And in this Mishnah, we see that that's not the case. The Chachamim argue and say, ein Breira. I don't know which red peppers he's going to get. So Akasha and Rabbi Yossi answers the Gemara, Epuch. Switch the sheets as you got them backwards. Cop out, right? Weak answer.
Yeah.
So the Gemara is going to help us with this in a minute, because every time we see the word Epuch, we need to ask our question, is this an authentic Epuch, or is this just a way to wriggle out of a circumstance? So we'll see tonight that this is a real strong answer. And then the Gemara is going to ask another question, but don't worry, we're going to come back to this Epuch. Tashma, ha'omer, a person says, Meiser sheyesh li bebesi mechulal al sela sheta'ala biyadi min hakis. I have Meiser sitting in my house, and I want to be mechulal that Meiser onto a coin that's in my pocket. In my pocket, I have 5 quarters, $5, 5 coins. So whichever one I pull out of my pocket, it's going to be Meiser. I'm going to whatever's on my dining room table is currently Meiser, and I'm going to put it onto the coins just by picking it up in my pocket. But wait a minute. You don't know which coin you're going to pull out. Rav Yossi Omer Mechulal. Rav Yossi says it's considered Meiser. What do you mean it's Meiser? That's Breira. I don't know which coin I'm going to pull out. So how can you say that? How can you say that? Rav Yossi on the previous page said Ein Breira. And now you're saying he's, what is the Gemara saying? Epuch. Switch the sheets again. You got it backwards. What should you have said? Ema Rav Yossi Omer Lo Chilel. No. You got the words wrong. Add in the word lo. He didn't mean to say that. You got it backwards. So says the Gemara, okay. The integrity police has to show up now. Umay chazis, the ifchas tarte mekamichada. You're reversing 2 cases of Rav Yossi against the one. No, the 2 are wrong and the one is right. The 2 are right and the one is wrong, right? The 2 that we said that seem to be Breira, you've got Rav Yossi backwards. You're better off switching the Mishnah by the Lakicha of Yayin. Epochad mekamitarte. We should have flipped his Shita by the case of the Meiser of the wine before we flipped 2 other Shitas in 2 different Mishnayos. So says the Gemara, you can't. Havada ibchatanya. They had to be changed. Why did they have to be changed? Because we didn't learn the end of the last source. The last source we spoke about is pulling the coins from the pocket. There are 5 coins. I don't know which one it's going to be. Seems to be Breira. And we said, flip it. You've got Rav Yossi backwards. Says Gemara, it has to be that we got Rav Yossi backwards, because the Katani Seifa, what does the end of that source read? It reads as follows. Umo de Rav Yossi. Rav Yossi agrees. The Omer Meiser sheyesh besoch beisi mechulal al sela chadasha. We don't know what that means yet. There's Meiser sitting on my dining room table, and I'm going to change that status of that Meiser to chulin by moving its status to a coin. What kind of coin? A chadasha. We know the word chadasha means new, but let's see what it means. Shetale biyadi, the one that will come out of my shetale biyadi minakis, that will come up in my hand from my pocket. Shechilel, and that's in the name of Rabbi Yossi. Now, what did he say? Rabbi Yossi agrees that in case X, that it's chilel. What does that imply about the previous case? Says the Gemara, if in the modeh part of the brisa it says chilel, then michlal dehasam lo chilel. It implies that in the resha it was not chilel, and the epuch was reasonable. It was perfect to turn it around because the seifa otherwise doesn't make any sense. Perfect, great job. So then we understand. But by the way, what is this chadasha case? What is the chadasha? Says the Gemara, Hi sela chadasha hechidami. What is the case of sela chadasha? Idika tarte tlas. If you have 2 or 3 in your pocket, 2 or 3 coins, the yesh breira hainu kamaisa. Then you're back to where we started. It must therefore be ella deleka ella chada. It must be that when we say a sela chadasha, that means you only have 1 coin in your pocket, and that means that he holds that there's no breira. It's only 1 coin, just like there's only 1 eruv. That's not where we say there's breira. Breira doesn't engage until you have 2 entities. It doesn't even start. It's a non-starter. If you have 1 unknown of whether or not something will happen in the future, that's not Breira. Okay? There's other issues maybe, but it's not Breira. So then says the Gemara, well, I have a word issue with you. In the Seifa of that brisa, what did it say? It said, the one that I pull out of my pocket. So asks the Gemara 1/3 of the way down, my ta'aleh. What do you mean the one that I pull out of my pocket? I only have 1 in my pocket. That was the case of Sela Chadasha. That's the only reason why we know that he holds that there's Ein Breira. Says the Gemara, you're right. The word is not meant to be specific. I did the Tana Resha Ta'ale, Tani Seifa Nami Ta'ale. Very good. So now we have clarity on Reb Yossi. And Reb Yossi Taka does hold of Ein Breira. He says that there's no Breira. It's not a problem. So when we look back in the previous cases, we know why he says that the Meiser didn't work with the wine, because we don't know which wine you're going to take out. Ein breira, you're not allowed. Looking back in all the other cases that we looked at, there was 3 different cases that we saw. In all of them, we reversed the last 2, and it all makes sense now. Rabbi Yossi holds ein breira.
And that one over there, he wasn't really pairs, it was really 3 and 1.
What?
With Rabbi Yossi.
Which case are you talking about?
That
That was Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yossi, even in the initial version of the Mishnah, was on the Osrin side. Yeah. Rabbi Meir, no, it was Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda was Rabbi Meir was the matir. Yeah, he was at the end of the list. He was at the end of the list. Yeah. All right, so now we're almost halfway down Lamed Zayin Amud Beis, and says the Gemara as follows: Amar le Rava le Rav Nachman, again 4th century, 3rd century. Rava was talking to his Rebbe. Man Haitana, who is of the opinion that Afilu b'derabanan les lebrera, who says that even in the world of derabanan that there's no brera at all. The Tanya, the Brisa writes, Amar lechamisha hareini me'ariv al eze mikem she'ertze. You 5 of you, let's say there are 5 of you, you're all holding an eruv, and I say whichever one of you I want to make an eruv. Ratzisi yelech, if I want to go use it, I will. Lo ratzisi lo yelech, then I'm not going to use it. So how does this execute? This is the Mishnah. It's a Tanaic source. We have to see how this plays out. It's a Brisa. Ratza mi be'od yom eruvo eruv. If my ratzon is indicated before Shkia, so then eruvo eruv, no problem. Why? Because I picked which of the 5 of you was before eruv. So what does that mean? It means I don't hold a brera, right? However, if mishechashecha ein eruvo eruv, but once it's dark, then I'm not allowed to haraya. We again, same thing. It's ein brera because it's after Shkia. Now I can't pick. Now the unknown elements of tomorrow are triggering, and I'm not. It's an ein brera. So that's what the Gemara Rabbi was asking Rav Nachman, who's the author of this brisa, who says that you're never allowed to use brera. Says the Gemara, Ishtik v'lo amar v'lo midi. Rav Nachman didn't have an answer. So Rava, he says to the Rebbe, I don't know if you heard, there's a brisa in the name of Ayo. V'lema leitana debe Ayo hava. Maybe it was Ayo. So Rav Nachman says something crazy. Lo shmiele, he never heard of Ayo. He'd never heard the brises of Ayo. I'm sure he knew his name. I'm sure he knew who he was, but I guess he had never heard this brisa. So says the Gemara, and it's not surprising again because brisas were not codified in the way that Toseftas were and in the way that Mishnayos were. It says the Gemara, what are you talking about? Rav Yosef Amar Tanai Shaklas Me'alma. You're trying to randomly attribute some Tana to a Mishnah. Why would you bother doing that? Tanaihi. We have an explicit machlokes Tanaim. This should be viewed as one of the primary sources of who holds what in regards to brera, because this is what the Brisa says. The Tanya, Hareini me'ariv l'shabbasos shel kol hashana. I'm going to make an eruv now for every Shabbos. Ratzisi elech, lo ratzisi lo elech. I may use them, I may not use them. Ratza mi be'od yom. If my desire to use them was from before Shabbos, then no problem at all because it's before Shabbos. I was kovea my eruv before Shabbos, eruvo eruv, no problem at all. But mishechashecha, what if it's after dark? Here we have our machlokes tanoim, and this is the crystal case of who holds a brera and who doesn't. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Shimon Omer eruvo eruv. Rabbi Shimon says it should be an eruv after chashecha. Seems to be he holds a brera. We're going to ask about that because that's not what Rabbi Shimon said on the previous page. So Rabbi Shimon says eruvo eruv, v'chachamim omrim ein eruvo eruv. Period. What do we see from here? We have a machlokes. What happens after chashecha? After shkia. After shkia. So what do we say at that point? If there's a shita that says eruvo eruv, that means he holds a brera. And if there's a shita that says no, it means they don't hold the brera. So that's our perfect case. So says the Gemara back to Rava, why are you throwing out Ayo's name? We have an explicit brisa that everybody knows about, and that is this machlokas between Reb Shimon and the Chachamim. The problem with this is that it doesn't make sense because we learned already in this famous Mishnah that's getting beaten up upon in 10 directions, the Mishnah about halokeach yain mi bein akusim. We said there that Reb Shimon was oser. That was the last line, line 4 of Lamed Zayin Amud Beis. Reb Shimon oser, he says, ein brera. So on the top of Lamed Zayin Amud Aleph, Reb Shimon said, ein brera. Here, in this new Brisa, Lamed Zayin Amud Beis, 2/3 of the way down, what does Reb Shimon say? Eruvo eruv, even after Mishecha, which means he seems to hold yesh brera. So which one is it? Yesh brera or ein brera? What?
So you're allowed to change your mind.
No. Well, the Gemara doesn't answer. We have to get to the answer first. That's the question. The question is Reb Shimon flipping? Or is he really consistent? So it says the Gemara as follows. Says the Gemara, "V'hashamiyin le Reb Shimon deles le brera." On the previous Amud, we learned that he does not hold a brera, and here it seems that he does hold a brera. Kasha de Reb Shimon ad Reb Shimon. Says the Gemara, Ella epoch. Flip the shitas. Says the Gemara, wait a second. Why are you flipping the shitas? So the Gemara, my kasha, why is it so difficult to answer this? Dilma, maybe Reb Shimon held ki lesle le Reb Shimon breira b'deoraisa. When is Reb Shimon unwilling to be flexible about breira? That's by din deoraisa, by meiser. That was our mission on the top of Lamed Zayin and Aleph. But here, aval b'derabbanan with an eruv that just for Tchum Shabbos, aval b'derabbanan islay. Why do you have to say epoch? We have a much better answer. Make your chakira. We only say breira. We are makbid. We say ein breira by din d'oraisa. We're not being flexible when it comes to din d'oraisa. The unknowns of tomorrow cannot be applied by din d'oraisa. When it comes to din d'rabbanan, maybe Reb Shimon will be lenient, and that's how we can answer up the Mishnah, the Bryce on the top of Lamed Zayin with Aleph with the lokech yain mi ben akusim versus our case over here where it seems black on white that Reb Shimon holds that there is breira. So it says the Gemara, you can't say that. You can't say that because Kasava Rav Yosef man de isle breira. Someone who actually holds a breira, loshna b'deraisa, loshna b'derabanan isle, no matter what, across the boards, Torah, rabbinic, doesn't make a difference. Anything is going to be, once you hold a breira, it applies everywhere. Uman de lesle breira, one who says that I don't hold a breira, loshna b'deraisa, loshna b'derabanan lesle, no matter what, across the boards, he's not going to hold of it. So answer number one was epuch. We tried to reject that sheet. That's not a great answer. We said maybe it's deraisa, maybe it's derabanan. That doesn't work either because Rav Yosef held that whatever you hold by breira applies across the boards. Whether or not you're in the deraisa camp or the derabanan, you either hold a breira or you don't. So therefore, we come up with the next answer. This will bring us to the top of the next Amanat, the Mishnah, and we will then stop at that Mishnah. And that is as follows. Rava comes to save the day. Rava Amar, shiny hasam. That case is different. Deba'inan Reshis Sheshirehani Karin. Really, this brisa that we just learned here about Rav Shimon, who seems to hold the breira, is really his real shita. Rav Shimon holds a breira. Why was he makbid in the case of the lokech mina yain mina kusim? Because says Rava, when you're giving meiser, you have to know what you're giving. We have a din called sheshirehani karin. You have to know that what you're separating is for meiser. And with a jug of wine, you can't see that. It's not distinct. If you have a pile of fruits, I could say the 10 yellow apples are going to be my meiser wine. You can distinguish. That's fine. But here, with the wine, we cannot make such a distinction. So that's what Rava says. But etzem Reb Shimon holds that islay breira. It's mutter. You're allowed to use breira. It's just a technical issue on the top of Lamed Zayin and Aleph that doesn't allow for it because I don't know when you're going to scoop out the wine. First scoops or last scoops, I don't know. And therefore, we need shireha nikarin. We need the meiser to be distinguishable, and it's not. Says the Gemara. Amar le Abaye. Abaye says to Rava, you need it to be that shireha are nikarin. You need it to be that you can distinguish what's meiser and what's not. How can that be? Elamayata, if that's true, let's take the following case. Hayulafan of shnei rimonim shel tevel. You have two pomegranates. One, and both of them are tevel. No meiser has been taken off. The Amar, and you make the following, granted, strange condition. Im yerdu geshamim hayom yehezeh truma al zeh. If it rains, then the pomegranate A is going to be the truma, and pomegranate B is going to be chulin. V'im lo yerdu geshamim hayom, it's going to be the reverse. Yehezeh truma al zeh. So then says the Gemara, if you need shireha nikarin, I still don't know which pomegranate is which. They look the same. Hachanami bein yardu bein lo yardu de'ein bidvarav klum. If what you're saying is true, Rava, that shirani karn, that when you give meiser, it has to be clear. It's not clear here. To rimonim, and then says the Gemara, maybe you would have assumed hachanami, and if you would assume that that is the case, that by these pomegranates we would not have known what was what. That's not true, because v'atnan, last of the short lines on the Zayin Amud Beis, v'atnan. Ha'omer trumas hakri hazeh, Ha'omer trumas hakri hazeh u'maiserosa b'socho u'trumas maiser zeh b'socho. If you have a smoothed out pile of food, and you say the meiser is in there and the truma is in there, all mixed in, Reb Shimon Omer karashem. That has a din of meiser. We don't know which pomegranate is which, so it doesn't make a difference. We still see that Reb Shimon is matir. So you're saying, Rava, that the answer of shirehani karin is a din by Reb Shimon. That the reason why Reb Shimon, in the case of lokech yain min akusim, said that it was ein breira was for the technical issue that it was really not ein breira. It was an issue of meiser, shirehani karin. But he said in a case where things were mixed up and it wasn't shirehani karin, he still said karashem. He still said that it was meiser. So you have to be able to answer that question. Answers the Gemara, and we are now 4 lines from the bottom of the page. Shiny hasam deika svivav. The case that we just said, where Reb Shimon just said karashem, that is the ika svivav. What does the ika svivav mean? Thank God for Rashi. 5 lines from the bottom of the page. Dibur hamaschal deika svivav shireha nikarin. In this case, where you said that it's the line at the first of the longest lines, it said that Maestros of Besocho, and we said Trumas Maestros of Besocho, says Rashi Shirani Karin, Ihu Besocho Kamar. He said it's in there. I'm telling you where it is. It's in there. It's right there. He's pointing to it. So therefore, we have Shirani Karin in that case. Another answer to this question is as follows. And this is going to be the last answer for the night. It'll take us to the Mishnah. Here we go. And if you want, you can say Kedekatani Taima because of the following conversation that took place. Amru lo. Who's Amru? So important to know. I did not know this when I first learned this. The Amru is the 3 rabbis of the dissenting opinions in the first version of the Mishnah at the end that we saw. Not Ulas, Zuze, but the initial Reb Meir on one side, and Reb Shimon, Reb Yehuda, and Reb Yossi on the other. Sorry, it was Reb Yehuda, Reb Yossi, Reb Shimon, I think was the order. So, Amrulo, the 3 of them said, Le Reb Meir. Iyatamoda, what did Reb Meir say in our Mishnah? Remember, Reb Meir said in that Mishnah, in the Brisa, he said that that you're allowed to drink the wine. Remember? That you're allowed to drink the wine. So it says the Gemara as follows. Iyatamoda, 3 lines from the bottom. Don't you agree? The 3 of them said to him, Shema Yibaka Hanod. Let's say that the pouch holding the wine will break, but you already drank it. V'nimtza zeshoset tvolim lemafreya. And that means that by accident, because all of everything else spilled out, you drank what was left. So you drank ma'aser, you drank tevel. You drank something that was not me'usar, you drank tevel. So Amar lehen, what does Rav Meir say back to them? No, you can't live life that way. You've got to be a little bit of a risk taker, and halachically it's fine. No problem at all. Now, if what you're saying is true, that your meiser in the first place shouldn't have counted because we couldn't see the distinction, then why, my kamrele, your question is ridiculous if you hold shireh hanikarin, because shireh is not nikarin at all. So why would you have let him drink it in the first place? So says the Gemara, no. It was lishitasam, hachi kamrele. This is what they were saying. Lidi done. According to the larger group, the 3 of us all hold that you need shireh hanikarin, Reb Shimon too, which was our focal point. We're just asking you, Rav Meir, lididach. According to you, who in the Mishnah said that you're allowed to drink it without the physical separation of the meiser and the truma and all of that, aren't you concerned? We're not asking about our shita. We hold shashireni karin. We never would have allowed what you did. We never would have allowed anyone to drink that wine. It would have been usher for a separate reason altogether. But what about you? Afal pikein amar lahen. Rav Meir holds the line all the way to the end and says l'chashei baka. That doesn't bother me. This is the din. The din is that you're allowed to say breira. You're allowed to say that even though I don't know when we're going to scoop out the wine at the beginning or am I going to save it for the end, doesn't make a difference. Rav Meir takes it all the way to the bank and he holds a breira. We will stop here. Mr. Hashem will pick up tomorrow with Daf Lamed Ches.
Wow, that was awesome.
That's a great